Hi, my name is Andrea Aguirre. I'm originally from El Paso, Texas, and I just moved to San Antonio, Texas as a Teach Plus Fellow. I will be cooking red enchiladas today. Um, and I am in San Antonio as a sixth grade teacher. I teach ELAR and social studies at an academy for San Antonio ISD.
Well, welcome to the show, Andrea. Thank you very much for accepting the invite. And you got right into it with the enchiladas. So for those of you who are watching this on YouTube, you're going to see this in action here. She's actually going to be making them. I've got mine ready to go. I'm ready to eat. For those of you who are listening to this on your favorite podcast app, your favorite podcast catching app, whether it be Spotify, whether it be Apple Podcast, Pocket Cast, whatever you use, just know that you can always watch the video of this by going to YouTube and searching for EdTech Bites. So thank you very much for that introduction, Andrea. So you are new to San Antonio, but not new to education, right?
No, I've been in education, now for 4 years. I actually got my degree in 2005, but I was working in the family business, and I didn't really leave that until 2017. I put in my 20 years in private sector, and this is my second career now, and this is what I want to
do. Nice. So yeah. How did we get to enchiladas? I don't even remember.
So it's controversial for me because I love San Antonio. There's some amazing food here. There's a lot of foodies that I'm following on Instagram, but I have yet to taste Mexican enchiladas.
Yeah.
So right? It's Tex-Mex. Yeah, I can't get into the Tex-Mex enchiladas, and the red tortilla weirds me out, and the gravy sauce that they put on it. So I said, I'm going to bring a little bit of El Paso into here and make it as we go along.
Awesome. Well, thank you for doing that. I'm going to show off mine right now.
Okay.
My wife is the enchilada maker in the house, and she makes a really, really good enchilada verde. So we've got some shredded chicken in there.
Nice.
Corn tortillas, none of that flour stuff.
And yeah, no.
Queso fresco. For those of you who don't know what queso fresco is, if you're Googling it right now, it's basically a soft cow's milk cheese that just kind of, it doesn't really melt, but it crumbles apart. It's good stuff. So my mouth just watered as I said that. So now you're making them. So what is your process on making the enchiladas, if you don't mind me asking?
So mine's different because I use 3 types of chili. So I have some of them here. So I'll use Guajillo, California, or New Mexico chili. I like the pasilla chili. It's a darker one. I don't use a lot of it. I just like the flavor of it. It does make the enchiladas darker. If you don't know what pasilla is, it's the chile poblano dried. Right. And this is I'm from El Paso, so we're only about 30 minutes away from New Mexico. So this is the New Mexico chili. This is the one that gives you like a redder one. I just brought in all the different chiles because I love all of them. Chile japonés. And so I bring in the little ones because these ones have more heat. So if I'm serving to somebody that wants a little bit more spice, I'll throw in some of these. If I'm just going to make mild enchiladas, which I usually do because they're for my sons, they're 8 and 10, or 9 and 10. I just had a birthday. I'll just stick to the Chile California or Chile New Mexico because it doesn't have a lot of spice, but it has flavor in it. And I just wanted to bring in and show you the viewers that this is chipotle chile. So this is a smoked jalapeno. All right, so it's this one, and it's smoked, and this is what it looks like without the adobe sauce. And so those are the ones I wanted to bring in. I'm pretty serious when it comes to chile rojo.
Yeah, I'm the same way. A lot of people don't realize that the fresh chili, as soon as you dry it, it changes name. Like the pasilla, is the ancho, and then I like using the guajillo as well as the, I can't think of it. I forgot the names, but yeah, there's a whole science behind chiles, and it's funny you bring up the chile de árbol, the little, the Japanese ones, because
Yeah.
I use those quite a bit, and I'm actually banned from using them in the house now. About 2 months ago, um, gosh, we haven't even gotten to the story, to the education part, but about 2 months ago, I was gonna make a salsa when I got home, a chile, and I like to put my chiles, my dried chilies, in the broiler. That way,
Mhm.
toast them up a little bit, make a salsa quemada, one that's a little darker. It's got a little bit of char to it. It's got a little smokiness to it. And when I do that, I usually put them in for no more than about 30 seconds.
Right.
I made the mistake of sitting on the recliner. And when I sat on the recliner, I watched something for about a minute. And then I realized, holy cow, I've got like 20 chiles in the
Mhm.
broiler. So I ran to the oven. I opened the oven, and when I pulled the tray out, I'm not kidding, they actually combusted on fire. And
Ooh.
my first reaction was, and when I did that, I breathed in the smoke from the chilies. And when I say that my
You.
house was smoked out, my youngest son was in the den, two rooms over from the kitchen. He was coughing up a storm. We had to open up all the windows. It was an absolute hot mess, and I felt that in my chest for about 2.5, 3 days straight, but it was so good.
Oh my God. So you basically pepper sprayed yourself, is what you did
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
sprayed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with capsaicin all over the place, and that is the last time I was able to do that. From now on, I have to do them outside, and I just made a salsa 3 days ago, and I put them on the grill outside, and sure enough, I breathed them in the outdoor air again, and I got hit again, but it was well worth it because that salsa, man, that's good stuff. So, all right.
So they do release a different oil depending on where you put them, right? I like the metate too. I don't know if you've ever made it from there. I like it because it does release the oil, but the heat releases oil. Even if they're dried, it'll release a different oil. And chile de árbol and chile japonés are a little bit different, but ooh, your wife is rather patient. You do that.
I love her to death. God bless her for
God
making
bless her. That's right.
me my wife, for putting up with that smell on the curtains and everything. So, all right. Well, we're here to not only break bread together and discuss the love and passion for Mexican food, enchiladas, and all things chile rojo and that, but we're also here to discuss access and equity. Now, you're involved with an organization, right?
I
That
am
that
the founder of La Gente Apoya, an equity group in Texas, and that's through the Teach Plus fellowship
Okay.
that
Can you
gets
talk
started.
a little bit about that organization and what you guys do and the goal of it and that?
So Teach Plus is trying to support and mentor teachers. I'm in the Ready to Lead fellowship, so they are mentoring us into leadership roles. And I was accepted into the program. I have 18 months to create an equity group and lead them through in a collaborative effort to have higher representation of people of color in leadership roles within education. And we have the autonomy to decide what kind of equity group, what kind of focus we want to work on. And I've decided to work and use my time with people of color, so Black, Indigenous people of color with neurodiversity, trying to find them support as an effort to disrupt the school to prison pipeline. Majority of inmates that are in prison show and exhibit signs of ADHD. Impulsivity is very high within the criminality sector. And so I really feel like there's a disservice that's being done in the school pipeline, leading them up to prison. And I want to disrupt that, and I want to help out and, find a way to provide resources to that demographic. I'm within that demographic. I'm a Hispanic female with ADHD. I didn't get diagnosed until last year, and it's a life changer for me. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity, and I'm very grateful that I had support all my life. But a lot of it makes sense to me now, and I can see where people can really diverge into a very different path. And I'd like to help my people, right, and other people that are experiencing that, to disrupt it, to make sure that they're not in the prisons, and instead they are leading tech companies, they are CEOs, they are getting into the fields that typically Hispanic and Latinos are not in, right? So that's really where my focus is going to be with La Gente Apoya.
And for those of you interested in the organization, doing a little bit more research on that, don't worry about trying to write it down or pausing or rewinding. All that information is going to be in the show notes. I've got the links for all that. So check the show notes out. That way you can, if you want to do a little bit more research, maybe you want to get involved, connect with Andrea, all that stuff's going to be in the show notes. So yeah, we've had a conversation, you and I mean, this episode is one that's been, gosh, it's been in the works for about a month and a half, I would say. And we've had to put it off for various reasons, back and forth and that, but we finally connected. And we talk about equity, we talk about access, but I don't know that we've had a conversation, at least I haven't heard one, that deals with these specific issues with minorities, with the Black community, the brown community, the Asian community, the indigenous community, those subpopulations of our culture, of our makeup here in the United States. And you pick a city and you've got pockets. So we need to have a real serious discussion about access and equity of access and back and forth. So that's what we're here to discuss. And you're here to kind of school us on that and what the approach is that your organization is taking, and where you see this going, because you brought up a very good point about that school to prison pipeline. And that's, I mean, you can Google, anyone out there listening or watching, you can Google that term, and it's a real thing. So we want to disrupt that. We want to make sure that our students, number one, they have equity to things like technology. And what good is a device if you don't have equity and access to a network that can handle what you're looking for, and apps, and the opportunity to not only just be compliant with submitting assignments, but given the opportunity to create and really start investigating. Because like you mentioned, we need more people like us, who look like us, who sound like us, as CEOs, and people who are making an impact and giving back to their communities, which are the communities that gave to them. So that's the conversation we're going to have today. So I don't know.
Absolutely.
I
hear
a little bit more about your organization and all that stuff. So if you could just have a free flowing conversation of what you guys are doing.
Okay. Well, before I do that, I'm actually going to show you what I do with the red chile really quickly. So you can boil it. It's faster to do that, but it gives you a much more bitter taste. And I like a smoother taste with the chile. So I actually soak it in water. You can see it here. It'll take out all the seeds. I soak it in cold water for about an hour, and then you can see that the dried chile is no longer crunchy. Now it's soft and malleable. And I'm going to put it in a blender. I don't have an aseptic because I didn't bring it. I would have. And I'm going to put it in the blender and start making the sauce from there. So equity within, right now, let's first talk about bandwidth and how much of a difference that is for a lot of our students. Now, a lot of the people of color are the ones that are staying at home, and they're staying at home for various reasons right now. Majority of students that are people of color are also caretakers. A lot of our students, 6th, 7th, 8th graders, are taking care of their younger siblings while mom and dads are at work, because mom and dads can't take care and they can't pay for childcare at this time, and they still have to go to work and they still have to pay the bills. So a lot of our students, a lot of our children, Mr. Gente, they're staying at home to take care of children. So there's a big disparity right now that's happening at home, and I'm sure that a lot of people are really aware of that difference. So let's look at that disequity, right? That's an inequity. Number two, bandwidth is the new hierarchy of class, right? The richer you are, probably the better connection you have to internet, because as you know, internet plans are based on how much you pay for it. So the speed of internet makes a big difference. So we have some students that are able to connect. They have flawless connections. They might drop once or twice throughout the day. And then you have other students that are constantly having their classes dropped. And that is statistically right now within our students of color. And so there is a huge inequity there as well, right? So now you have caretakers with spotty internet, and maybe you've given them the device, but you've already set them way back with the responsibility of family, because family is very important to our children of color, to their families, and we don't have the same access. So we're going to be further behind after this pandemic, right? In educational ways. We will not have that same inequity when it comes to family. My son's over there with TV. And so those are the things that we're going to be having to deal with once this pandemic is over. Which child is going to have a better, more realistic return to class? Which child is going to feel more connected? Which student is going to feel like they literally didn't have a learning loss? Is it the child that's at home taking care of siblings? Typically anywhere from 3 to 4 siblings at home, that's the average that they're taking care of with low internet. Is it the student that is probably maybe even at school right now or has great internet coverage? So now we're putting all these students of color just during the pandemic behind, but we've given them a device, so it feels good. It feels good because we've given them, and it looks like equity, but it doesn't feel like equity. You can't give a device and then all the other systems aren't in place. So these systems are in place. They're having to take care of way too many people at home. And now we're expecting them to do high rigor, to turn in lots of different classes, different work, and they're tired, right? They're not being kids. They probably miss their friends. And these are the people that will be leading in a couple of years. And they don't see people like us in positions of power. 30% of IT professionals are Hispanic. Of those 30% of Hispanics that are in IT roles right now, 9% of 30% are female. I mean, I'm not saying 9% of the 100% of IT. I'm saying 9% of the 30% of Hispanics are female. What a huge inequity that is.
That's I mean, I'm not going to do the calculations right now, but that's a very low number. That's a very low number in a field that has such a high yield of people and such a high yield of need, especially right now during this pandemic. So the question is, how do we go about fixing that? How do we go about initiating some change, getting some change to the system or to the structure so that we can meet their needs? And the things that you were mentioning, you didn't even tap upon the social and emotional part of it, which is, I think, the biggest disservice that we're doing to all students right now. And I don't want to say disservice, because there are some teachers doing some great things and doing some things that are really meeting the needs of their students, both on a personal and on an academic level as well. But when we tend to kind of get on kids for not turning their cameras on in that, but every student, every kid's got a story, every kid's got something in the background that they don't want to share or they don't want to have heard. So there's a lot at stake here, and it's going to take years for us to make up that gap and to start filling in that gap so that we are where we should be or where we should have been had this pandemic never happened. So I'm going to shift gears real quick. What do you got going on next with that with the meal? Oh, you're muted.
So I took all of the chiles, they're in here. I've filled it up about 3/4 of the way. I'm going to keep on adding water as I see. I put in 2 big cloves of garlic for here. This is going to give it the majority of the flavor, bring it out. I will be putting salt and, unpopular opinion, a little bit of sugar. And when I say a little bit, it's just a pizca. I think that's like a pinch, right? Not pizca.
Yeah, a pinch.
So like about that much. And I put the sugar in because it actually brings out the notes of the chile. And so it's just a little bit, not a lot. You're not going to taste the sweet chile. It just brings out the notes at the very end of the chile because I put in 3 different chiles. So I really want to taste that distinction with them. So I'm going to put it in now.
And while you're doing that, a lot of people think chilies and chiles and they automatically think heat, but that's not necessarily the case. Certain chilies have a different flavor profile. The larger the chile, especially if it's smoked like pasilla, you have the you're dealing with guajillos and that. They have a sweet taste to them. Yeah, they've got some heat, especially in the veins and the seeds, where all the heat, the capsaicin is in. But a lot of them, especially when you toast them on the skillet or what have you for a little bit, and then you take a little bite of it, or you soak them in water like you did, and they're a little bit more pliable. It's like eating candy. It's sweet. Oh, she's got the blender going, so she's muted. It's like watching a documentary.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is. There's some that are sweeter, and Mexicans, I love the Mexican candy. You can put it, you can just add a little bit of sugar to it, and we even eat it as candy. That's how much we love our chile. Right now, I can tell that some of it is a little bit spicy because there's like a little bit of an itch. Mm-hmm. I feel that itch in my throat, so it's just slightly spicy, but it's not overwhelming. So I can feel like there's going to be a good amount of heat at the very end. If I wanted to make it a little bit less spicy, I would add some salsa de tomate. Yeah. If I wanted to. Right? But some people are purists, so that can only be the salsa. I totally get that. Let it run for as long as possible. So I have a pretty thick paste right here. I like it thicker. And you can see I'm going to run it in front. So it's pretty thick as a sauce.
Nice. You don't strain it?
I don't strain this one because I'm going to be dipping the salsa. If I was dipping and then frying, I would strain it. So it's a different flavor.
So there's different ways to make enchiladas. So I feel like I'm like one of those broadcasters at a baseball game, like watching and commenting as things are happening. So there's different ways to make enchiladas. There's the casserole style. There's the style that I'm assuming is. No, that's not what you're making. But there's some where you dip the corn tortilla in oil really quickly, in hot oil, and then you dip it in the salsa that's a little bit watered down, or like Andrea said, is you run it through a sieve or some sort of I don't want to use the word filter, but you run it through some sort of a colander, and you get the big chunks of the chile out, the pulp, and you're left with a thinner consistency sauce. And then so you dip the corn tortilla in the oil and hot oil, and then you dip it in there, and they're really pliable after that. You got to be really careful though, because if you dip them for too long, you leave them just a little bit too long, and what happens?
They get mushy.
they get mushy or they rip. And if you want to mess up someone's day, you pull that ripped tortilla out, forget it. The
No,
good thing
no
about when
bueno.
though is then you can kind of eat the ripped tortilla while you're making the other. So
They turn into chilaquiles. No, just kidding.
yes. Yeah. All right. So so you brought up some very good points about equity. You talked about, the bandwidth, and I've never really thought about it that way, but bandwidth is kind of like the new status symbol.
It is. Absolutely.
Yeah, and kids see it and hear it and talk about it, and wag complain all the time when they're playing video games. Oh, your Wi-Fi is horrible. You're only getting 30 frames per second, and this is happening, and you're laggy. Whereas you have kids who have access to the 1 gigabit network, and they've got a router system and a hardwired network home, and it's flawless, and it really is a symbol.
I mean, we can keep on going into the numbers, right? So white children typically have anywhere from 1.3 up to 2, maybe. That's the statistical number of people that are accessing the internet at home, right? So 1.3 to 2, so they're going to have great access. People of color typically have 4.3 to 5 people at home connecting on average, right? We have larger families. There's more people that we have to take care of. Maybe the cousins came over because we're sharing child care duties as a family, because that's what Hispanics do, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
So you have a lot more people sharing the bandwidth. I mean, so the numbers could just keep on going if you really think about the inequity of it, because culturally we are different, right? And there's a natural bias that happens where we think in a typical house, everybody has 2.3 children. No, they don't. Right? No, they don't have the same bandwidth. So there's a huge inequity in lots of different nooks and crannies that people aren't thinking about because they don't have the cultural and the heritage perspective.
Yeah.
Right? So
my question to you is, where do we go? Where do we go from here? We know the numbers. What do we do at this point? What can we do? What's in our control? What's out of control? And what do we need to do to get the people who are in control to start changing some of this around?
I love that your show is so food focused and so foodie focused, because I'm actually thinking like a neurodivergent person. You can have an equity group and you can sit in meetings and you can have discussions all you want. And to me, that is an absolute chore, and I don't want to do that. And I think outside the box, and I want to do it as creative as possible. So I actually want to bring in the culture. I want to bring in the experience, and I want to create a documentary of what this actually looks like for families. And what does neurodiversity look like? What does neurodiversity that's not diagnosed in school look like? It looks like that child that constantly goes to detention, and then in school suspension, and then out of school suspension, and then alternative classes. And then from there, they go to an alternative school. And because they've had so many disruptions, that's the school to prison pipeline. By the time they get to 9th grade, they've already lost anywhere from 6 months to 2 years worth of learning, simply because they were being bad. But they weren't getting the same access to interventions as other children that were getting diagnosed. So I'm thinking of bringing in the music, the food, the aroma, the experiences, creating a documentary, showing what the cultures look like, showing what neurodiversity looks like within our people. We're very different. And it shows up very different. So I want to create that just to bring light to it. A lot of people react to optics and to sound more than to numbers, reports, sitting, discussions, right? We are people that are surrounded by food. And so I want to be able to celebrate that in a documentary setting. So it's kind of a great way to introduce that, because this is a show about food. And I love that.
So when you say documentary, you mean like a documentary, like a
absolutely
production.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what, so the equity group will be more, look at all my spices. Isn't that beautiful? I love it. When I say a documentary, like full documentary, what does neurodiversity in a Hispanic household look like? we are so used to hardworking moms and dads that are handling 3 or 4 jobs. They don't have time to really think about the fact that they don't have downtime because they are going constantly all the time. For me, myself, here's how I knew when they told me, I like flamenco, I like folklorico, I do carpentry, welding, painting, photography. I like traveling, I do extreme sports. I'm constantly looking for things that are going to be exciting and new and relevant. I have to constantly be learning. I'm a mile a minute, right? But you can see me. I'm not, super hyper. I'm not bouncing off the walls. It's my mind that's constantly going there. I have maybe 20 or 30 hobbies constantly. My mom was like that. My dad is like that. My brothers, it's generational for sure in my family. My children have neurodiversity. I have one that is diagnosed with Tourette's. That's within the neurodiversity field. And the other one also has ADHD. Both of them have ADHD. So what does that really look like in a household versus just a Hispanic household where we honor and we are pushing for hard workers? You have to be working all the time, right? We have this overworked philosophy ingrained in our family. So what is the difference of just somebody that's working hard versus somebody that's going constantly on all gears, all the time, can't stop? What does that really look like? And so to get that information out to families, to mothers, like, hey, if that kid can't sit still in class, and you tell him, hey, sit still, and he sits still, and he looks at you, and he's behaving, right? And then, like, the very next minute, he literally falls off the chair, can't help himself. He's impulsive, he's doing these things. These are big red flags. Not that there's something wrong with that child. It's, hey, that child might need some extra services, right? So how do we advocate for these kids? We have to show what it looks like. That's why I want to create the documentary. If we can see it, then we can actually say, hey, I think mi hijo a lo mejor lo tiene, right? My son might have that. That looks really familiar in my house.
Yeah, and they'll be able to relate to it. And like you said, you now have, for lack of a better term, like a basis of comparison kind of thing. And they can
right.
see the similarities between maybe what they're seeing and what they're seeing in a family member or a friend or what have you. That's interesting. That's very, very interesting. And you were diagnosed last year.
Yes. I was diagnosed at my son's doctor's appointment. My son has Tourette's. There's this wonderful clinic in Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, Texas. Shout out to Dr. Parnes and his group out there. I realized when he was young, I was really observant. I could see something was not quite right, but he was brilliant at a young age. He could hear a song and he could go to the piano and he could play it, but he couldn't write. He couldn't hold his pencil correctly. He couldn't tie his shoes. He was sniffing his finger, like constantly. He had these tics, and I didn't know where they were coming from. And I thought, am I going crazy? Tourette's is a very slow process of tics that grow up to the age of 10. 1 in 100 children have tics. I have yet to meet a child that has diagnosed tics. And I'm around children all the time. I'm a teacher. My last school had 1,200 kids. Not one of those kids in that school had the diagnosis of Tourette's. But they have it, I'm probably sure, right? And so it could look like this, right? It's repetitive actions. Tics aren't just motor, they're, vocal, they're motor tics as well, right? And so I was sitting there with Dr. Parnes. We're having a 3-hour conversation because Dr. Parnes is very thorough. My children's father was with us for that visit as well. And he goes, after a while, he says, it looks like your oldest son and their father has the same kind of ADHD, right? It looks more like the ADD. Their attention is not there. Whereas your youngest son and you have a very similar version. I thought, wait, what? Excuse me? You're saying I have it? No, of course not. And I started looking into it, and I realized then that most of the studies for ADHD were done on male children, white male, right? So they don't include females. They don't include people of color. So all of the studies were showing this hyperactive child that just couldn't control themselves, that has an impulse. In ADHD in females is very different. It's our mind. We're very compliant, especially Hispanic young women. We are trained from very little to be very compliant. You're almost getting your PhD in being the perfect wifey the minute you're born, right? Learn how to cook, learn how to clean, learn how to listen. If you don't listen, you're so disrespectful. And so, it's going to look very different for us, people of color, especially women of color. And so I didn't get diagnosed until then. That was January. I went back to my doctor and started the process. It was a 6-month process for them to rule out everything else. And then I finally got the formal diagnosis.
Wow.
So it took a while.
Yeah, it's out there. It's been around forever. We just now have a term for it. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So very, very interesting. How are those enchiladas coming along?
They're coming along. The sauce is ready. I'm going to start making the rice.
Oh, man.
Yeah. So for the rice, a little bit of oil, and I toast it. Mm-hmm. Another piece of rice. It's a little bit toasted here. My rice is pretty simple. It's just chicken stock, the chicken bouillon. I use tomato. I don't use a tomato bouillon. I use tomato sauce. And then slow and go for about 20 minutes. By the time the rice is done, the enchiladas will be done as well.
Nice, nice. Wow. So you've got your hands full with this project, this organization that you are involved in. And like I said, for those of you who are listening, make sure that you have definitely checked it out, clicked on the links. All that information is going to be in the show notes. How long has this organization been around?
So the La Gente Apoya is barely starting. Nicole Viscotti from Arizona, she's got a book that she's written on ADHD. And she said, hey, I'd really like to be part of this process, help you out. Rodrigo Bravo here in San Antonio, Texas. He's a producer for a radio show in Houston, Texas for Tony Diaz, 90.1, I believe. And so he says, yeah, I'll help out as well. So right now I'm in the stages of actually having people come and be part of it and seeing where they can go. Thank you. And so right now I'm trying to see who wants to be a part of it. I really want to form a team that either they have a neurodiversity of some kind or they are an ally of that population or a researcher. So I really want to make the documentary with those people that say, hey, look at what we can do. We're super creative, super capable. I'm going to show you the real stuff. What are the struggles of ADHD, right? I call it a superpower, but there's a lot of things behind closed doors that people don't get to see a lot, like, you know, the piles of disorganization that you have from it, the mundane tasks that you can't get to because it's absolutely boring, like bills. I hate paying bills. Mm-hmm. Thank God for auto pay, right? And those can be big disturbances in the life. So those kinds of things, I want to create with people like, yes, we can create these things, but we're also going to show you the reality of the situation, which is part of it. So right now I'm actually looking for people that want to be a part of it, that want to help out with this kind of a project, that want to do an equity group project in a very non-traditional way.
Wow. So for those of you who are listening or watching and want to be involved, make sure you reach out to Andrea. All her information is in the show notes for this particular episode. So you can connect with her, send her an email, get involved. I'm starting to raise not an eyebrow, but I'm starting to raise my little feelers, my little antenna, because that does sound like something interesting that I might want to get involved with as well. And you mentioned some good people, Rodrigo, Nicole Biscotti from Arizona. I'm connected with her as well. So it sounds like you're on the right track with the right. Well,
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put some of this stuff away and start getting into making the enchilada.
all right, you're going to school us on this.
Okay. So the sauce is ready, and you can tell. Woo! Look at that. You can tell when the sauce is ready when you see a little layer of oil on the very top. You can't tell from right there, but you can definitely tell when there's just water and when there's oil. When that oil hits, that's when any one of your chile sauces are. Whether you use a chile rojo for a guisado or you use it for the enchilada, you have to wait for that little tiny cap, the very, very top, to show a little bit of the oil, and that's when you know that the sauce is ready, by the way. So it's very visual. You can taste it. Yes, you can wait until it gets hot, but that's when the flavor is at its peak. I'm going to let that rest for a little bit on the side while I get the tortillas ready to go.
Are you particular with the tortilla that you use? Like, do you use a certain brand or from a certain store?
I know that there's some purists out there. To be honest with you, I'm a busy mom. I don't know if you've seen my kids. They come in here, they're crazy. We have our attentions all over the place. I'm going to get whatever I can. I'm going to keep it real with you. It's whatever I can, tortillas, whatever's there, as long as it says gluten-free, because I'm gluten-free. I follow an anti-inflammatory diet for ADHD, so I try to stay gluten-free. I don't care which one it is. No me importa cuál marca, démenla, is good. I'll try it. I'll use it. My mom is a purist. Like she uses only one tortilla. Some people, they want to go get fresh tortillas. I don't care. Tortilla's a tortilla. I care more about the sauce than anything else.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We use a couple different brands, and there are a couple that we won't use because they fall apart sometimes. They're a little too thin. Do you like the white corn or the yellow corn?
Yellow corn I only use for flautas because it's crunchier, and the white corn I use for enchiladas. So the yellow corn I'll use for chilaquiles, but the white corn I'll use for enchiladas. That will be the difference.
Got it. And for those of you who don't know what chilaquiles are, that's a whole nother episode. That's hands down one of my favorite meals right there.
Yeah. Okay. So here's how to make them not be mushy. You have to warm up the tortillas first. Just really quickly in the comal, you'll see they're just a little bit. See the heat coming from them. Keep them nice and hot. Gonna make a few here, and then I'll fry some of the oils. I'm gonna keep them hot while I grate the cheese.
All right. What kind of cheese are you talking
about? Okay. All right. I'm going to heat up my skillet. So I have two types. I like the, so I just moved here, right? And I went to Culebra Market, and I've been trying all the different cheeses to see how they melt. And I was really impressed with this one from Cacique. We don't have this in El Paso. It's actually for quesadilla. It's super melty and yum. It's part skim milk cheese. It's a mild, creamy, melting cheese. Okay, so like typically for burgers, I guess. But I've seen that it melts really beautifully inside the quesadilla. Inside the enchilada. So this one I put on the inside because mine are cheese on the inside. And then you flip those tortillas. And then on the top, because I'm a very, very visual person, I'll use the cotijo polvo, right? And so it's like I'll take it out of here. Show you here.
It's like for those of you who are watching or just listening, that cheese is almost like a Mexican feta.
It is. I like the flavor of it.
Yeah, so it's got a salty, nutty taste.
It's nuttier, yeah. So I'll put it on the top for the optics of it, and then I'll drizzle some crema mexicana on the top as well. So I'll use three different types of cream. That's a tip I got from my grandmother. She uses three different types of flavor profiles in a lot of her cooking. And she said that was the secret, because people couldn't figure out. Then I'm spilling family secrets, Gabriel.
Yes, you are. You are. Yes, you are. Now, I do have another question for you regarding the discussion of equity and, basically what we're talking about. When this ends, this whole pandemic thing, do you think that we are going to be closer to having equity, or do you think we're going to go back and this is going to be something that people are going to shove under the table or under the rug and pretend that this conversation is one that doesn't need to be had?
Oh, so right now people are very hyper aware, right? They're very woke right now because they've had to be at home. They see what's going on, what have you. And so right now it sounds really good. That's the hot word for the moment. What's really wonderful about our people is that we're really resilient as a group of people, right? And we're really hardworking. And I know that we can follow the money, right? Money is a huge motivator for our Hispanics. And so if we show them the path of, hey, you could be earning 6 figures right out of high school if you did this route, if you went an alternative route, right? If you got Google certified in high school, I mean, you could blow it out of the water, right? And so a lot of students, especially within our culture, they get told that college is the only route that you're going to be able to make this money, but college isn't really feasible, right? So if we can show them the way out, a different route out, yeah, it can happen. But if we don't show them, right, if the people that have been there, that have done it, that don't go out there and say it out loud, hey, I'm inviting you, come be a part of it, let me show you a different way, right? It's kind of on us to help those generations below us, the younger generation, to come out of that. And that's my call, that's my challenge to any adult right now, right? If you're in a profession, you're a person of color, your representation right now is the most important thing that you can do for students of color, right? Be loud with what you do. Be proud of your work. Show these kids, take them on, mentor them. There's nothing better than one-on-one mentorship. We need that, right? So if we did that collectively as adults, it could be astronomical, right? Take them under your wing. And I think that we can. I think that we can do it. For a long time, the narrative is all these Mexicans are going to take our jobs. Well, let's start taking those tech jobs. Let's start erasing that 30%. Let's start, raising that 9% of women of 30% in tech. Let me show you. You want to make those 6 figures? The chances of you being a YouTube success story are very slim, but you have a much better chance if you went this route, right? Don't be playing video games. Make the video games. How much money do you want to make? You want to make $1 million or you want to make $1 billion? Which one's more, lucrative to you? Which one's going to call your attention a little bit more? If we start opening those eyes, yeah, we could do it. But we can't do it in isolation. And we can't do it in formal ways. We're not a formal, people. We are passionate. We are informal. We are about family, right? So look within first. Look for those younger people, mentor them within your family, show them the way, show them different ways. Yeah, we could do it for sure. That's my hope.
Yeah, let's see what happens after this pandemic, and then for all the people out there who are brave enough to do that, to take on that challenge, to mentor a couple of students, have those conversations, and not look at some of them as a quote unquote problem, then I think maybe they've got a fighting chance to get out of that initial pipeline that is being built, that it has been
Right.
built in there for years in the school system, straight to the prison system. So let's start giving our students some opportunities here. And I see you're shredding the cheese there.
I am shredding. It's really soft because it's been sitting out for a while. But it's going to be like super thick and melty already. So can you imagine when the heat hits it? It's amazing.
Yes.
So I'm warming up the oil now, and I have some beans in here. I have the tortillas ready, so I'm going to plate just a few
Okay.
for the show to have it ready.
Because I'm sitting here. They're waiting for me. They're calling me.
No, you should have been eating this whole time. I wasn't even paying attention to them. Sorry.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right.
You're going to have to go warm yours up now. Okay.
No, I'm good.
So, okay, I'm going to do two really quickly. So they're still pretty hot. You can see the heat coming off of them. They're really soft and malleable, and you can, this is how you get them to not be, they won't absorb the oil either when they're hot already. So the heat is already on here. I'm going to drop them in very quickly and then dip them into the red sauce. And then I'll start plating all the rest of it. So I'll make some really quickly.
Sounds good. And this is a crucial step.
Yeah. So take them here.
And that's warm oil, not hot oil. Like they shouldn't be bubbling like crazy and frying.
They shouldn't. No, they should not. And I just let them puff up a little bit. Drain it out.
I see a couple little blisters on that tortilla right there. That's a good
sign. Yep. I don't like the oil, so I just dab it really quickly. Some people like it, Some people like it. I want to show you two different ways. So I'm going to show you the northern Mexico way, and I'm going to show you the southern way. So, the southern way, we'll just take this and I'll dip it into sauce, and then it'll be done straight from there. The southern way will take that little bit of heat, dip it in the sauce, and then dip that tortilla right back into the oil again.
Yeah.
You can hear it a little bit harder.
Oh yeah. And that's because you have the solids of the chile in there with the warm oil, and
Right.
that's sounded very familiar.
Yeah. So the southern way is just the dipping of the sauce in here. So you'll see they have two different flavor profiles, but the rest of it. So this is the northern way. So double fried, right? So fried in oil, dipped in the sauce with the oil back into the oil. That's the double fried. This one's just fried one, has a sauce in it.
Yeah.
So same amount of cheese for both of them. I would put onions typically in them. But for the speed of the show, because we're almost 53 minutes.
It is all good.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna get them here. Hold on. I'm gonna put some of the crema. I'm telling you, I like it. I like to look at pretty food.
Yeah, we eat with our eyes first, right?
Right. Yeah. For sure. My mom is probably like, you need to put that sauce in the strainer. No, I like mine a little bit chunkier. Okay. So I put the crema in my squeezing bottle and roll the tortilla. I usually roll on one plate because it's pretty messy, and then I transfer over and let it melt.
Got it.
So here we go. Okay. Queso cotija. So this is them rolled.
All right.
Queso cotija on top.
And if you've never had that cheese on a enchilada, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm. And then just a drizzle of the crema. So there you go.
Ooh, good. That looks good. All right, you ready to take your first bite?
Ready. Okay, let me get a fork.
All right, I've got mine. I'll get started, I guess. So, different method, different style. I have the enchilada verde, the green one. This one's got a little shredded chicken. It's got some queso fresco, the ranchero style, a little soft. You've got a different one, but buen provecho.
Buen provecho. Mm-hmm. I also have lemonade. This is lemonade, okay? I just don't have the cups for it.
Right. Yeah, lemonade.
Agua de limón.
I don't care where you're from, what you like, what you don't like. A good enchilada is a good enchilada.
It is.
Awesome. So, Andrea, how can the listeners connect with you on social media, your websites, all that good stuff?
So my website is right now, we're in the process of building it, but if you go to lagenteapoya.org, what it's going to do, it's going to take you straight to my Twitter for La Gente Apoya for now, until we have a decent landing page. Twitter is probably the best way to connect with me. I'm on there quite a bit. I'm building a lot of content on there. My personal Twitter is at Aguirre Learns. And I use that for a lot of the different social media. I'm hardly on Facebook. Don't even try me. I probably won't accept you for like another 6 months because that's how often I check it. Instagram, I use it mostly with my students, to be honest with you. Once my students, always my students. So I have very few people on there. So Twitter is probably the best place to reach out to me. And then hopefully that website will get built pretty soon so that we can capture these things. Anybody that wants to be a part of the project, I think that's something that's of interest. Even if you want to do it for a little bit, if you want to help out for the entirety of the 18 months, if you just have an idea or a connection or you know somebody, a researcher, I'll take any information, right? It's a passion project built by the people for the people, right? Nuestra gente. And it's called La Gente Apoya because we should be able to support one another. Right, so the people should support. There's a saying that in Spanish, el pueblo apoya la gente que apoya el pueblo. So the town will support those that support the town, right? And so that's very much part of my culture, my heritage. I love that. I want to adopt it. And so I really want to say, hey, if we as people, we can support one another. Let's be more supportive and less judgmental. Let's push each other. Let's mentor each other. Let's find new resources. Let's connect, right? Let's really dive in and show people how brilliant we are and disrupt that prison disparity.
Yeah, absolutely. So those of you who are listening or watching, all that information is either going to be in the YouTube description of the video, and it'll also be on the podcast notes in the episode commentary. So check that out. Give Andrea a follow. Check out her organization, what she's doing. Try her recipe. Give it a shot. Let us know what you think. And Andrea, I do have one last question for you, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer already. Flour tortillas or corn tortillas?
Oh, corn, a million. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time not only to connect and have a discussion about equity and access and inequity and not having access for some of us and your project, but also for taking us on the enchilada journey. So I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for providing a space and a voice for people like me. I really appreciate what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you very much, Andrea. You have a blessed evening, and we'll talk to you soon.